I'll take that as action. Okay. Jeev, hello, it's Mr. Shorshin. I'm Shorshin. I use she, her, and I'm here with the Voices at the Centre panel with Galway Community Pride, both Pobl na Gailge. I'm here with two artists slash activists, and I'd love to have you introduce yourselves if you'd go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Kate Escalin, also known as Tiny Greens online, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a Filipino illustrator and comic artist based in Kildare, and my art is inspired by conversations with friends and experiences with loved ones with an emphasis on showing emotional honesty. My art is mainly online, and it's what I'm most popular for is my structured 4-paneled comics. So that's what I'm most known for. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you'd like to go ahead and share your name and pronouns and a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Pradeep, he, him. I'm from India and I'm living in Ireland for almost 10 years now. I'm visual artist, writer, activist, filmmaker. My work comes from background of my experiences of sexual racism within the gay community and on broader perspective, queer and immigrant people of queer immigrant experiences in Ireland and the marginalization they feel. Its direct effect on their mental health and sexual well-being. I write for TCN about this, and I work with an actor, Dublin, and I'm also doing films now about queer people of color lives in Ireland. Recently, I finished a documentary called the Land of Living, and the documentary is about queer people's lives during COVID lockdown in Ireland. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, and it's so great to have you two here to talk more about this and answer a few questions that we have for you. We're so happy to help to platform your voices and just hear what you have to share. You can answer these questions, but if you want to go off script and tell us anything more, we'd be delighted to hear it. So we'll get into the questions now. And the first one I have here is there any campaign or acts of protest that you have been a part of or know of that you believe deserves more recognition and a larger platform? Some examples might be the recent ones ending IGM, our recent vigils that we've had, any recent solidarity protests, they don't have to be recent, and Pride itself, Pride as a protest itself. So Kate, maybe if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, I would say, well, I was marching in the trans and intersex Pride Dublin just a couple days ago, and in 2020, I did donation portraits for a charity where all the funds went to Small Trans Library. Because I'm sure most people know that the healthcare services in place for trans and intersex people are incredibly outdated and basically non-existent. And I wish more people would know that the waiting lists are so long, incredibly intense, very invasive questions, and it affects a lot of my friends who are trans people. So I would just like to highlight that more.
Excellent. And Pradeep?
Yeah, so I did campaign with Gay Project Ireland card in 21 autumn called Proud as Fuck, Proud AF, and that it was first ever campaign happened in Ireland about racism within the community. So a lot of time we talk about racism as a broader perspective, but we don't recognize the issue of racism within the community and how people feel vulnerable, and it's affect their mental health, and as I earlier said, sexual well-being. It was well received campaign all over the world. It has a global impact. It gave me broader perspective and platform that I connect for other queer people from different parts of the world with different sexualities and gender identities. So it was quite empowering and elevating experience. Then during lockdown from 2020 to 2021, I worked with ACT of Dublin about this campaign about open GNHS now, because during the pandemic, at the beginning of pandemic, all our sexual healthcares in Ireland, they stopped for, and the staff was diverted for pandemic frontline work, but that affect community largely, and it made people more vulnerable, scared, and shame around seeing people and other queer sex. So we had this broader campaign, and then we got this service restored. I am also part of Soapbox. Recently, I talk at the Soapbox at Outhouse, and I continuously, so writing is my writing and illustration is core of my activism, and I keep writing for TCN about queer immigrant experiences. So that is a big campaign itself, and I also designed Ireland's first ever sex positive guide for sex party guide with HIV Ireland and Empower last year, and it has beautiful illustrative story of sex positivity, and plus my Instagram profile, it is dedicated for activism, where I made illustrations exclusively about gay men's the gay men of colors experiences in Ireland and sexual racism.
Wow, yeah, there's definitely a connection between what you were both talking about, especially how art is like central in both your kind of work, but also I think it leads into the next question, which is, what is a small step, or even a big step, someone can take to make the LGBTQ+ community a safer and more welcoming place for all? So maybe we'll go in the same order if you'd like to go again, Kate.
I would think this is a really small step, but I think it's quite big. I think just believing people.
Yeah.
If someone had a same-sex partner their whole life that like would come out to you, just don't like knock whatever they're saying, just be supportive and listen to them. Or I've noticed that in like queer spaces in Dublin especially, I think I saw a few tweets about the George, and so many people were saying, how come there's so many straight people in the George now? But like I think it's just because they're not presenting as like overtly gay, which I think a lot of people need to understand, that people are still closeted, still figuring it out. You should still be really welcoming to anyone in the community. You can't just say, oh, this person doesn't look or act a certain way, so they can't be in this space, because it's supposed to be a safe space. So I think just believe in people.
Great, yeah. And
Yeah, this is a good question, but it is quite of like stereotypes. Like we talk about year after year, and each pride we talk about same issues, but I don't see nothing significantly changing. And change come with the sharing power and knowledge, because knowledge is the tool that make us understand the issues and problem. We cannot afford to feed on the fence and this global political and social climate. We cannot afford as an activist to sit on the fence and wait for things to happen. So the small steps, there are a lot of like microaggression that we ingrain in our daily communication. So why I'd like to challenge, I'm a cis gay man, okay? But I'd like to put my pronouns everywhere. Why can't we have this normalized on our Zoom chat, on our Instagram, on our email, on our Facebook? Why can't? So there is something niche or something with shame about putting pronouns that only non-binary and trans people only have. So people only with pronouns, they are non-binary and trans. So it creates a shame. No, it needs to be normalized. There are many such things that we can implement in our lives, and these are not rocket science. We don't need extra knowledge there. Just be humble and listen people how they introduce themselves, and not judging people about what they're wearing, how they look, how their skin color, because there is, particularly in Irish queer circle, there is such like stereotypes, racial stereotypes. So suppose Asians have small cocks and Latinos have big cocks and they do bareback, you know. So those are stereotypes, and that impact everyone. So there is equality in pain, because that impact everyone equally. And the mental health, and then the intersection isn't so much need to understand here, because people like me who are not born here, we don't have here social support or support system. So we sulk and depress and sad in isolation. We don't have friends here because my skin tone is not fit or appropriation for friendships and building positive relationships in my life. So these are all small things we can do. And first, I strongly believe that we as a community have many problems that we always hide and run away and think about more global issues and problems, which are not in our control. But there are certain things that in our control that we need to work and sit down and then think about the broader aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the next question, it's kind of recognizing maybe if there's any small steps that you've noticed that is working in the community. But it's, when do you feel that the voices of your community are truly heard and platformed? Maybe we'll switch up the order. If you're ready to answer, Pradeep, you can go ahead first. You can take a moment if you'd like.
Yeah. So as an Asian queer, Asian gay person, gay man, okay, who is fully functional and very sexual and active at sexual play, it was such a hard, because back in the day, one of the Pride, I think Dublin Pride, I'm not sure. One of the Pride has this slogan that year, like bring your authentic self, or maybe your authentic self, something like that. And as an artist, as an activist, writer, I started challenging that, like authentic self. What is authentic self? Is my sexuality is my authentic self, my gender, my skin tone is my authentic self, or my hair color, or my eye color, and how I walk, how I talk, and what I'm eating. Is that all encompasses in my think process, because that's a create me as a person, that's present me as a person, and is that something authentic self. And then we have these slogans and everything just for like blabbering. I feel that we doesn't leave that. And as the 10 years, I remember, still I'm struggling to having friends in Ireland. Still I'm struggling to having sexual partners in Ireland, because someone Asian is not valid or attractive, or, and I'm specifically talking about a gay and bi men, okay, to having these friendships or sexual encounters or hookups, because all these things are so necessary for queer life and queer identities. Not only talking about racism is not enough. Inequality, talking only about inequality is not enough. I can sit here and talk all night, all month, all the 65 days. But in my personal life, I don't practicing it. So it doesn't have any sense, And that I feel, so my activism starts from there. When I feel depressed and I see more people like me, same situation or more vulnerable situation, then I say, okay, now this is time to stand up and talk about it, write about it, create discourse, because in Ireland, we don't have such text, written text or spoken words or moving images. So that's come with the thought that this is a well-designed, thoughtful process that I'm doing, that the future generation will have their sense of belonging, that, oh, there is someone brown, there is someone Asian who came to this country and talk about this issue, and he was a happy and fun person.
That's a great answer, yeah. And Kate? Yeah, so the question is, when do you feel that the voices of your community are truly heard and platformed?
I don't know if it's just because I'm also part of the art community, but I feel our voices are heard when there are more queer art exhibitions, because it's like queer people actively taking up space somewhere and having their voices heard through their art. And I would like to think that Dublin is pretty good for that, but I do think there definitely is, there should be more opportunities for queer people to exhibit their art. I'm trying to think. No Queer Apologies was a photography one recently in Dublin, which I thought was very good. And it was just a space. It was a photography exhibition. Just having like an open, like safe space for queer people and also their family and friends to go and see what they have to say, which I think is important. That's also, I think it's important to not have it entirely related to alcohol. I think it's quite good that art exhibitions can be really calming and there's no pressure for anything or to even really speak to other people. You can just listen to other people's voices and not like, yeah.
Yeah, with all the kind of arts festivals that we see going on during the summer, especially, and film festivals, all of that, it would be great to see. And I have seen some where there are specific like exhibitions and specific films, specific nights that are for showing queer art, and that's great to see. And I've noticed myself like small things like going into the bookshop, and when I was younger I would never see anything outside like straight cis white characters as main characters, but now I go in and I see that as bestsellers there's books that are queer stories and they're about people of color, which I never got to see when I was younger, and I was mad into reading, and I was a little young a little mixed Asian Colleen and not seeing any of these things, so it's lovely to see. Now we have a question that's, I guess, nice and wholesome. Do you have a favorite Pride memory? And we'll go in the same order, maybe. Pradeep, if you want to tell us any favorite Pride memory.
So for me, This is a beautiful experience I had last weekend. In Dublin, we have this trans and intersex pride. And I also put it on my social media, and I would like to repeat it here again. In 10 years, it was my most memorable, beautiful, inclusive, and positive pride experience. Dublin Pride for me, and like there are many people like me, we don't feel it inclusive. It is amazing, and it is essential for certain people for their needs, but for more people like me, it is not connecting dot, or it's not connecting to our senses. I found the trans pride, and each year I go to trans pride, but this year it was so significant because without any major corporate or marketing, it was just a spontaneous joy, fun, people meeting each other, talking and together. And you don't have to be trans to be there. You can meet your non-binary and trans friend there, and share the joy, walk with them and standing for them. I think that is the core essence of pride that somewhere we have lost after marriage referendum, that political, that aggression, that protest element is somewhere gone, and it more become like corporate and fun and ooh la la, So it doesn't satisfy me. I don't satisfy with pride flag enough. I don't, because it doesn't stimulate my mind. Instead of a pride flag, I would like to make more friendly policies. I would like to see more people of color and diverse people of color from of the gender, sexuality, and color background in leadership. So that could be more tribute to pride and for Stonewall, what we are celebrating. But I don't connect with the other aspect of pride, with like everything is fancy and expensive and people struggle. Yeah, in community there are many people who struggle, especially after lockdown. People are still figuring out their foot in the crowd. This social anxiety and a lot of other issues. So I think that was my most memorable experience in 10 years, and I think it should grow bigger on that time.
Great. Yeah. And Kate?
Mine is actually the same. Where I had such a great experience at Trans and Intersex Pride. It was, I think, the biggest turnout that they've had, and it was just really nice seeing there were like kids and adults and like everyone of like every color and age group all marching together, which I thought was very nice. And yeah, there was no like corporations, there was no all of that kind of stuff. It was a lot of what Pride was originally, which is a protest. There was like chants and people like working together and signs, which I thought was just, the environment was great. And all the talks were really good. Usually I think for Pride, people, just for Dublin Pride, people would just like march in the parade and it would be all fun, and then no one would really listen to any of the speakers. Yeah. I feel like everyone who attended the march stayed and watched all the speakers all throughout, and then dispersed, which I thought was like really respectful and what it should be. And yeah, and also this is just like, I saw someone's t-shirt that said mammies for trans pride, which I just thought was like the best thing. It was really sweet. Obviously, people have difficult relationships with their parents, so it was nice to see, like, if someone did have that kind of relationship, they could see that shirt, and it made like so many people smile. So I thought that was also a good thing.
And I would like to add Kate's sentiment here. Like, we queer people, we are not herds. Okay, we are intelligent thinkers. Throughout our life, we have to stood up for everything. Nothing come for easy for us. So that wrapping whole that pride day into the corporate extravaganza, it doesn't give me anything. It doesn't satisfy my quench to know about my community, to be there. And I don't feel like, okay, if I'm going there, I don't feel belong there. And that's what I found so beautiful about Trans Pride, because the crowd came, it was spontaneous. Largest crowd we had for trans and intersex pride. And so nobody should take for granted. And also speaker. There are like diversity of speaker there I found, because in the any other mainstream pride, I'm just phrasing it as like a mainstream pride. There are like certain people year after year, same people come and talk the same talk. I don't see new people coming with new, fresh breath of thoughts, or their issues or their problems. Or that is not like same people coming and they're talking same things and same Instagram stories and Twitter and then so yes, thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, a pride for me is a pride that is a great representation of allyship, and you can see that it's more about community than about, I guess, the way that pride or corporate pride is in a lot of places, huge prides, where it's more about party pride, maybe the party side of pride. I didn't go to trans and intersex pride, but I've heard a lot of great things, and it's been all down like every feed that I have on every social media, just like all the beautiful memories being shared and seeing like families there and people that I know there, was just such a wonderful thing. And I think that pride was like, it was very similar to like a rural pride. I think it was almost a rural pride within Dublin or something. But yeah, it was great to see. So I guess the next question, and kind of the second last question, is can you recommend any good sources of information or ways for people to stay informed and help platform your community's voices? So this could be for young queer people that might not be out and they see you talking about your experience in the queer community, and they want to learn more about it, or people that aren't informed about I guess people of color in the community and their experiences, or anything like that, or any sort of information that you think that people should be looking into more, if you have any suggestions. So Kate, maybe you'd like to tell us.
So good sources of information. I would say, honestly, Twitter. There are like tons of accounts that people can follow, like Gay Community News or Pride Dublin, or Radical Queer Pride. And they will just like post a bunch of information, because we know sometimes people can't physically go to events or talks, or like protest for whatever reason. So, but it's good to stay updated, donate when they can, and all these things. So I'd say Twitter, like or Instagram or something. Like if you follow one of these accounts, usually they'll like talk about others, and it like it's a good like networking place to start off, I'd say.
Yeah, great. And Brigitte?
Yeah, so I'm now in my 40s. Okay, so the whole technology aspect of our visual and communication landscape has changed a lot. So what I would suggest, it might not be relevant for young queer people in Ireland, but I think the technology has its own benefits also. So there are a lot of podcasts. There is a lot of information there, and beautifully curated, knowledgeable experts are talking about issues, and they share their thought. And these are like preserved spoken words. So I would mention few. There is one UK-based podcast called Queer Talk. Or there is one beautiful, my most favorite. So whenever I travel on a flight, I take the 50 Shades of Gender. So that podcast is so beautiful, and I just repeated so much knowledge there. So much there is, and then if you are young and if you really want to know about the Pride, what happened during Stonewall and before Stonewall. So we have only surface touch, like scratch about a Stonewall and Pride March, okay? But there is so much happened to boil that water to bring up the mark of Stonewall. So you can listen all amazingly curated stories and real people talking about who witnessed that time is making their history. So something like that you can listen, and it is age friendly. So even if you're not up to that age, and if you have the quench and the thirst to know about community, so and if you like to read, so you can read good book. Recently I read this book called On Earth We Are Briefly Judges, and it's so beautiful. He's the young guy, he's the young Asian immigrant gay guy, and he's sending letters, writing letters to his mother who is ill. So something like that. And I think at this age, so when I was young gay person, I didn't have all these tools around me, not the technology. And plus I had that phase of time in India, so it was the more difficult to access or communicate this thing. But in the Irish landscape, people have this opportunity to see this and access this beautiful source of informations. Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that will give you a lot of things. But also you can look out for good, valuable podcasts, spoken words or written words that will give you really good insight that what world you will face when you will become adult and go out to your university or change your country from some town to Dublin or London or somewhere. So you can use this time to prepare yourself with relevant and important information around you.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I guess lastly, if you guys would like to share any personal social media handles or anything like that, or any projects that you have upcoming or you have done in the past, just so that the people who are watching this, if they want to hear more from you, that they can go to these places, to these projects or these social media platforms. Okay.
A lot of the things I'm working on right now, unfortunately, I can't talk about. Sorry.
All right.
You can hear barking.
Is there anywhere that we can go to like wait for these upcoming projects to hear more about them? And see more your past projects?
So my artist name is Tiny Greens. So on Instagram, it's just Tiny Greens, one word. And on Twitter, you can find me as Tiny Greens Art, all one word, yeah.
Great, yeah, thank you. And Pradeep?
Yeah, I'm on mute, sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, you can follow my Instagram called Queer Myths, where you can find this illustrations, more sexual illustrations, and I don't feel shame of making something in the picture. So, and those are mostly they are like undercurrent topic and narrative about sexual racism. Then you can also follow my social media that I have co-founded this new group called QAPI, Queer Asian Pride Ireland, dedicated for Asian queer people living in Ireland. So you can follow that, and we have interesting program lineup for that. And you can also follow my film that I just finished, my documentary called ionadaíoch on Instagram. And I'm just typing here, so you can put it in here text if you are getting tech for this. So these are my things that you can follow and look up to.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you to you both for being here and sharing all this information and your perspectives. It's definitely such an honor for me to be here and to be hosting, and I'm so glad that I was asked. So yeah, this is Voices at the Centre panel with Broad Public Gaillimhe, Galway Community Pride, with Kate and Pradeep. Songful.
Thank you so much, Galway Pride, because giving platform for different people with different body types, different accent, different skin tone, and showing those to young community is so essential, because that will give them knowledge that there are diverse people, there is a spectrum of people out in the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I would also like to say thanks for having me as a guest. And what Pradeep said, I think it's like really important. I feel like most of the things I would be invited to talk to are for people of color, but it's never really like about the queer experience. It's only just being Asian. So it was really nice to be invited to something like Galway Pride. So
great. Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, delighted to have you. And do you want to say a small bit about yourself, your queer background or your LGBT background? Or
so I'm a gay man. I have been with men and women in my life, especially when I was younger. Like, I think most people who are trying to figure out their sexuality have probably been with both genders in a lot of ways, haven't they? I feel like we all have. And I came out when I was 21. I kind of always knew, but I always knew I was different and couldn't put my finger on it, but could. And when I was like 7, if I heard somebody saying gay or seeing gay people on television, it would make me feel kind of really weird. That shows you that I always knew I was gay, but was scared of it, and maybe scared because of the things I'd hear around me. I'm also from a traveler background, so me growing up gay, queer, whatever terminology you use, was definitely a challenge. But I feel like it's always a challenge for people to be outside of what society's norm is. I do feel like, though, although we can only all speak for our own experiences, and you're either one or the other, I think people from minority backgrounds although all of society is minorities, but you know, when I say minorities, I mean people who are black, people that are from certain religions, people that are travelers, people that are gypsies, stuff like that. Not that, you know, white non-religious people don't find things difficult. You know, obviously people do. As I said, we can only talk from our own experiences. But I do feel like growing up in a minority background, there probably is more difficulties because society already has prejudices and stereotypes pinned on you. You face the prejudices as a man that men get in society a lot of the time as well. And then as a traveller man, oh my God, you get all of that. And then you put those things together, and within my community, there was so many challenges and misunderstandings, and it's really something that's starting to change now, I feel. But it's still something that there's so much work to be done on, and it's until there's really no kind of, I don't know, nice way of saying this, but I don't mean it rudely. It's probably until certain generations aren't here anymore, like that the people die, that you won't see the full change. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of my gay background. I don't know.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah, no, it's good to get an insight into it. But yeah, some really good points there about, yeah, and as you said, you can only speak from your background, but I suppose that's the purpose of wanting to do this interview and the Voices at the Centre panel in general, to make sure we hear the voices, basically.
For sure. I think the most important thing in life is communication between people in any situation, okay? And I think what is very, very important when it comes to the issues is communication, but representation through communication also. The feeling of being alone or unpopular is very daunting to people, but very daunting, especially I think to teenagers, because teenagers, everything is to be popular, isn't it? It's to be the hottest guy, the hottest girl, the one that everyone wants, the most successful, the ones with the parents with the new car, and you know, all of these things in society, and everything is embarrassing to you. So when you're different and outside the norm, when you're growing up as a teenager in school and you're growing up gay, for example, you always feel so strange and you find it hard where to fit in. So to have representation and voices talking about that is so important. And for that to become like the social norm, quote unquote, is what we need in our community, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And for the kids to see it, to be able to see,
relate, for sure.
Panel, to be able to see immigrant is in a panel, to be able to see themselves in it. So I'm gonna, let me see, I'm gonna have a look at the questions. When do you feel that the voices of your community are truly heard and platformed? So it kind of goes on from that. But
I feel like the best time you get heard when talking about your opinions on subjects is probably when you say it in a respectful, understanding, and educated manner. I don't know if this is answering your question properly, but this is how I feel is best to try to change things and be an advocate and stand up for what you believe in, is to do it in a respectable manner, in a manner where you're very honest. I'm very honest when I talk about problems that travellers face, because I'm also very honest about the issues that travellers causes and the percentages and statistics and issues that comes from the travelling community. And I think it's all relevant to the same point of how do you make these changes? How do you better society for travellers? And how do you better the community, and what travellers can offer to society and what society can offer to travellers? And I think with gay people within our community, we're really starting to be heard very recently. And I think it's because our organisations and our travellers' rights organisations are starting to fund campaigns and projects for that, which I think has been such a huge missing factor in changing mental health issues, suicide, all of that within our community. If you look at the traveller community, 17% of travellers die of suicide. You can't just say that's all to do with racism and issues outside of the community. There's so much internal stigma and problems within our community. So it's starting to be listened to and it's being heard now. But I do feel like there's such an acceptable prejudice towards travellers in society that it's very hard to be heard. It's very hard to be heard in general when you're standing up for things you believe in, but travellers' prejudice is so acceptable that it's even harder. So you have to be even more understanding, even more lenient, because you don't want to be typecast as the aggressive traveller when you're having a debate. And you know, within our community, the issues that women face, the misogyny, the LGBT, the homophobia, the transphobia, all of this is, I think, is certain generations haven't gone through a lot of mainstream education. They haven't been very intricated in other parts of society in their lives, but they don't have that very important worldly education of how to interact with others and understanding and great social skills. So it's just about changing all of these things, I feel, within our community, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, because no, you hit on it quite a few good points there. But yeah, it's just getting the opportunity to do it and then trying to aim to do it in a respectful way. And
it's also creating the opportunity for yourself. I know there's racism and there's homophobia and there's internal stigma and there's misogyny and sexism and body shaming and there's all of that in the world, but I still do think institutionally these things aren't allowed anymore, although they happen under the table. Just because it doesn't say on the window of the pub, no black person can come in here, doesn't mean that that's not what's going on inside. This is the argument that people aren't having. You know, when people are throwing out terminologies like institutional racism and you know, all of this in society, then they're hit with, well, what's in our institution that's racist? They can't answer. It's to do with lived experience and it's to do with what goes on under the table. But just because that happens under the table doesn't mean we can't push forward and create that opportunity for ourselves, because legally we have the right to. And there is support out there. There is ways of changing. Not everyone who's ignorant is evil. Sometimes it's like with the traveling community, older generations, it doesn't make them evil because they wouldn't stand outside with a poster for gay marriage and they'd feel a bit weird at a gay wedding. It's because they've never seen that before. That's allowed until you stop being offended by these things. That's what I mean by protesting and having conversations in a respectful manner. Until you accept these things and be understanding of it, you're never going to change anything, because until you do that, you're just going to be fighting fire with fire. And everyone's going to be getting angry, and then everyone, when they're angry, they say things they shouldn't say, and they get upset with each other, and they subconsciously they get personal with each other, and all of this, and it creates a segregation and a divide, and the very, very bad influence and a very bad example to younger people. You know, it makes people think, oh, well, look, you know, I told you white people are racist towards black people. I told you this person's homophobic, or I told you gay people are weird, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's about being honest. I'm honest and I understand my facts and figures when I'm talking. So that's where, I don't know. I gave you a very long answer, but I hope you understand.
No, yeah, I do. Yeah. And yeah, one of the things that's sticking with me is what you said, that in life, communication is one of the most important things, and to be open to, like, that people that might be ignorant or might know better doesn't necessarily mean they're evil, but and being open to having conversations.
Look, all that you ask of people is this one thing: please try to be open to having conversations, and just try to have an open mind. If you don't have one naturally and you won't raise it one, try to have one in the sense that you can have a chat with people. That's all. Just listen, just hear me out.
Exactly. Let me see other questions. Do you have a favorite Pride memory? This was a bit
well,
more.
I've only been to one gay Pride properly last year. Was the first one I went to a year ago next month, and it was very fun. Now, I did do all of the things that people say, you know, Pride isn't just about, where like you go around and you get drunk and you do all of that, but it was so lovely to feel in such an unjudgmental environment. Although I do believe there's definitely judgment within the LGBT community, especially with gay men, where, you know, slut shaming and body shaming and all of them issues. But it's in terms of our sexuality and what we chose to wear and how we represented ourselves, I felt it was a very, very open environment, and I really enjoyed it for that reason. It was so fun. What else did I love about it? I remember seeing older people who were about 70 and kissing and dancing and having fun, gay couples, and it was so lovely to see. Me and my cousin was there, and we're like, oh, how cute and lovely is that? And I did kiss a lot of boys, so they were happy memories. And I got to meet a lot of people. I met some of the queens from Drag Race, and it was a lovely experience for sure. But I have very memorable experiences from other prides that I didn't attend because they were pride, but I happened to be in the city centre in Dublin. The pride I was at last year was Manchester. I was at Pride in Dublin twice, but I didn't actually go in for Pride. I was out already, and then I realised it was Pride, and then I kind of, before I was out, I was about 18 or 19, and there's this guy had been speaking to on Facebook, and I sneaked off to the gay club to see him where he worked. And that kind of sometimes has made me feel a bit sad that I had to do that. But I remember thinking back to our environments where I felt safe and stuff, and I don't know, it was nice. So I remember thinking back to that. They were nice times.
Good, yeah. So yeah. My experience, I've only been to last year, the year before, but they were very much like COVID prides. They were, you know, very small little occasions. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this year to getting the proper experience. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, there was another question. What's a small step someone can take to make the whole LGBT plus community a safer and more welcoming place for all? I think we kind of touched on that with the open communication, but have you any other thoughts that come to mind?
I suppose because communication to me is a broad spectrum word. It's a word where you're across the board, and it can be taught. Do you know what I think is very important? When you're in conversations with people and they're having jokes and banter that can be a bit rude, this doesn't mean you have to be one of these people that corrects everyone. We all shouldn't get offended by everything. But if you're in an environment, and especially if there's kids around in your family or friends, and you're listening to people having gay jokes with each other, like straight men and stuff like that, that doesn't mean you can't have a bit of crack, and everyone can't be, you know, on the chopping block to be joked about. You know, I think if everyone else can be in a comedy show, well then joke about me, comedian, as well. I'm not one of those people that gets offended by everything. But if you're in an environment where you hear certain conversations and subconsciously it can create a certain narrative, speak up and say something, give another side of the story. You don't have to be standing on a stage in front of, you know, 10,000 people to give something that is a motivational word, like few words to say. You should be able to say that in a room which is just one-on-one. You should have these opinions still. And to me, it opens up a conversation. It makes nobody feel alone, and it makes everybody understand. So little steps like that is important, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And yeah, that the small steps, the small one-on-one conversations can be just as big as you say, speaking in front of 10,000 people, or trying to make the way that way. Let me see. Yeah, so one of the last ones. Can you recommend any good sources of information or ways for people to stay informed and help platform your community's voices?
Maybe don't always read or listen to the propaganda you see in the media, because that's always to be dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't just look for representation in sides of the community that's toxic, or how the community is represented in the media. Remember, media is entertainment, and it's there for controversy. There's great organizations that are there for support. I'm always very supportive to people. If you'd like to follow me on social media and inbox me, just be yourself, be your own person, and when you wake up, I heard Caitlyn Jenner saying this, when you wake up in the morning and you're just being yourself, life just becomes so simple. It is. It's like just to be you, just for me to just have a boyfriend and bring him home and introduce him to my parents. And there's no questions. It's the same as my sister's doing it. It's just such a nice feeling that you don't know how nice it is until you feel like you can never do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm delighted you're at the stage where you have that acceptance in yourself and in your family and that sort of thing. It's so important. And yeah, to hold on to the bits that you hold on to the positive bits that you can get. Yeah. So let me see. Yeah, on that actually, that's perfect lead into the last question. If you have any social media or projects that you want to share about that people can look you up.
So Huey Mon is my name, and if you type that in on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you'll find my profiles. They're all verified accounts, so you know which one is mine. There's many other accounts that aren't mine in that name or whatever. And I have a lot of opinions. I share a lot of stuff, but mostly I'm just being myself. And I think in a weird way, politically, that makes you even more of an advocate, because as I said, not everyone just wants to be preached to or feel that they are. You can preach to people without them thinking you're preaching, and that's the best way to preach. So I do a lot of that on social media, and I'm always there for support if anyone wants to inbox me. And I promise when I say the message, it might be immediately. I don't know when it'll be. I get a lot of messages. I always respond.
That is so lovely. Yeah, and that's very lovely. And yeah, we will have, when we're editing this, we'll pop it up on the screen, just to make sure that we have the right spelling for things and that sort of thing.
No problem at all.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good. Are you happy with that? Would you like to mention anything else before I turn off the recording?
I also want to do an LGBT photo shoot and interview for the Voice of the Traveller magazine. So that's something that I definitely want to do. There's a magazine called the Voice of the Traveller, and it always has a front page every month of somebody they believe is representatory of the community or a message they want to convey, alongside many other stuff inside. I've been on the cover, my dad has, for his charity work. I was on it for reality television and media work I've done. And I want to do a cover with all LGBT travellers, because I think it'd be fantastic and very representatory and revolutionary. So that's what that's a plan.
Oh my God, I would love to see that. Oh, that'd be so cool. You've got me excited now just hearing about that.
Fabulous, thank you.
Yeah, because I was able to get your contact through, let me see, I want to get the name right, the National Action Group for LGBT+ Traveller and Roma Rights. So to see that that's a group that exists is amazing, and I'm sure they're doing great work. But yeah, that idea of getting on that, Voice of the Traveller magazine would be awesome. Cool.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for having this conversation.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Okay.
No worries at all. Thank you.